Welcome to another edition of the Hawk Off the Press podcast. I'm your host, Gazette Hawkeyes reporter, John Steppe. I am excited to welcome George Barnett, Iowa's offensive line coach, to the podcast this week. George, thanks for joining me.
Absolutely. Good to see you, John.
Yes, good to see you too. So let's start off with, you've had a young position group in your room. How do you adjust as you're trying to help them develop when sometimes in, say, the case of like a Connor Colby or a Mason Richmond, they could be thrown into a position where they're going to be contributing earlier on than the average offensive lineman at a Big Ten school?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think there's a fine balance of, hey, we got to get these kids ready to go and doing it the right way. But not in the determinant of the team. You got to keep things going and do the best for the team as you can. So I think number one, as soon as you get these young kids, I knew early on, we had a couple other vets that were a little bit hit and miss, playing time, that kind of deal. So we knew that we were going to have to get some young guys ready, some first time starters and players ready. So you just go down the checklist of, hey, number one, we got to teach them the base set of fundamentals, and we got to perfect those base fundamentals that they're going to rest on and rely on during a game when a coach isn't over their shoulder. And number two is you got to teach them the base plays of the playbook, and they got to know what job to do. So like in Mason's situation, where he had a year under his belt, he had a little bit of advantage over Connor, where Connor had a spring, which was good, but there was a little bit more for him. So it's just a matter of getting the base fundamentals, getting the base playbook in, and then now it's, hey, how many reps can we get in practice of individual drills, teach them how to practice, teach them how to be consistent, to show up every day, to be to give the effort the team needs on every down, which that's a big adjustment for going from a 3-2 to a 1. And then it's get enough scrimmage time, where you can let a kid go. And this is probably the biggest trick of them all, in my opinion, is allowing them to get out and play, but yet the coach isn't telling them what to do and correcting them every second of the day. So if they have a bad play, instead of me barking orders or telling them how to correct that, it's sit back, let them feel it and fix it, and then come to the sideline, just like they have to do in a game. Because the first thing we want to do with these young kids, not coddle them, but we want to coach them every second of a practice. Well, part of playing on Saturdays that probably a lot of people don't understand sometimes is they're out there by themselves. There's no microphones, there's no coaches in the huddle like JFL. Like, those guys got to feel it, fix it, and learn how to respond to a tough play. So you have your individual drills, you have your team periods, and then you have your scrimmage periods where you let them go and then correct in the film room. And it's just that cycle of going back and forth of making a mistake, coming in the film room, correcting it, and then getting back out there, hopefully not making that mistake again, understanding there's probably going to be a new mistake for a young kid, get back in the film room the next day, and so on and so forth. That's where the patience comes in because if you get impatient with a young kid, he'll think that you've lost trust in him. If you just say, "Wow, you're screwing it up," or you got to be able to respond as a coach correctly to a young kid's failures, so he can become that veteran one day that's teaching the young kids how to go. But you also have to teach the player on how to respond to tough times. So development, obviously the key word. We're at the place that does it the best. So that's a huge advantage. I knew when I came in last year that we had some work to do and some development to do, but what a place to do it at.
Is it tough when, I'm sure your first instinct as a coach, when you see them make a mistake, is you want to be able to jump in and correct it right away, to like hold back and say, okay, I'm gonna wait till we get into the film room because they aren't gonna have this in the game situation?
Yeah, and I think you got to balance that out. I think there's times where you do give immediate response, but I think there's also times where it's so great to see a kid, especially a young kid, go through a tough time on the field and just track how he responds. Look at his body language. Where's his shoulders? Where do his eyes go? What's his, is he talking to a teammate? Is someone lifting him up? And those are all teachable moments that at the end of the day, if it's in the fourth quarter, last drive of the game, and you got to have it, guess what? That patience you had with that kid, it may pay off for you. So it's hard, but you've been doing it long enough. You know that sometimes overdoing it can be harmful.
And then when you get into the game situations, there are going to be times where you're going up against, say, like a Michigan that has 2 NFL quality edge rushers. That can be tough for a young player, regardless of how well the last year and a half had gone. How much do you balance using that as a teaching moment while still keeping the confidence up and not dwelling on maybe some of the tougher results?
Yeah, I think once you get in a game on the sideline, I think it's confidence is number one, and it's response. It's play the next play. You don't have time to. There's no "I told you so"s. There's no "you need to do this." But there's correct the mistakes, get a plan for correcting the mistake, and get moving on. But that's the hardest thing for kids to do. I don't know if you see it, but kids today are wired to be perfect. With social media and personal trainers and everything that these kids have that wasn't around 10, 15 years ago, everything's based off perfection. And that's probably not a good thing. So, because at the end of the day, we're playing football, all right? We're playing offensive line in the Big Ten. I have never seen a kid play a perfect game. I never saw a kid play a perfect game at Mattoon High School in 1999. So, to me, what's most important is be able to respond to the imperfect play or the imperfect day, because how many games do you get into, especially as an offensive lineman, where you think, oh my gosh, that wasn't a good series, and you end up winning that game. But at the end of that game, you look back and you forget the bad times, right? You forget all the tough times. It's like it's always move on to the next play. Keep our eyes straight ahead and focus, especially with the young kid. Now, as you get older, those guys know, like, hey, these are bumps. These are necessary bumps in the road of the game, because one team is going to react better than the other team. So the perfect, hey, we got to go play the perfect game, or we got to have the perfect this. That's probably not the best way to go at it, especially at that position. It's more of what is your response going to be. And in today's day and age, you have to teach that, because it's being taught less. Because what these kids have been absorbing into their minds for the last few years of social media and expectations are higher, with just the internet and things like that. So they have this thought of, hey, I have to be perfect. No, you have to respond to the imperfect. That's how you set yourself apart. So yeah, and it all falls into your question of how do you get and develop young kids.
And then how helpful is it to have this time where you can look back at the game film? Because probably for the average person going into their sophomore year, you don't have as much in-game things to look at as you do with somebody like Connor or Mason.
Yeah, it's tremendous. And it's there's times to do it, like during spring football together as an outfit. And then there's also times where a Connor or someone comes in individually and takes a deep breath and just watch, clicks the lights off and just watches. And they just different modes of learning for different kids at different times. And it's, to be able to get out of the fire and take a deep breath and realize it wasn't that hard is such a valuable tool moving forward. And I think that's what these kids that have just played there, we got quite a number of kids that have played their first action. We got another group that's getting ready to play their first action next year too. So this is such a valuable time for them on their own, as a group, or us together in the springtime to go over that film. And it's just maturity happens when they watch that over and over.
And then I realized that they didn't really call you when they were making this decision. But when the Big Ten added USC and UCLA, what was your first reaction?
My first reaction was honestly no reaction. I'm pretty obsessed about the job we have to do here. And the best way I can help Iowa football graduate our kids and win football games is stay obsessed with my room and keep my eyes focused, not to dodge the question. If I had a concern, if you said, hey, you have to give me something, my concern would be just the kids, travel and organizing everything and where's this thing going. But I'll wait till they ask me.
I suppose you wouldn't mind though a trip to LA in November as opposed to like break up the trips to places like Minneapolis in November.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm a Midwest guy, so it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to me. The cold doesn't bother me. It's kind of football weather, but so yeah, I'm good.
And then switching to a more personal note, so it was your freshman year of high school, right? When your father passed away?
Yes. Yeah, it was.
How much did that tragedy shape who you are today?
Shaped everything. It's exactly why I am the way I am today, whether I'm as a father, as a husband, as a coach, going through those moments as a 14-year-old kid, when you hear your dad has cancer and, a little over 2 months later, he's gone. There's all sorts of emotions that build up, and wonderment and anger and all those things. And, but you're also grateful for the time that you had with that person, just like everyone else that goes through these things at a young age or older age. And then what really clicked for me was during that time was just how much coaches gave to me when they didn't have to. The watching people do something that they don't have to do for others is pretty powerful. And I felt that at 14 years old. And when I mean do something, I don't mean they coddled me. They did the exact opposite. They pushed me. They set the bar higher for me. They kept driving me. This is my high school basketball coach, Jeff Butler, my high school, and he's also my track coach, my high school coach, Stan Winky. You just go with my college coach, Carl Pelker, and my offensive line coach, Tom Jensen, the offense coordinator, Gerald Temples. Like, all those guys did such a tremendous job. And I don't even know if they knew it. They were coaching why they wanted to coach. They were doing their job exactly why they got into it, to take care of kids and help kids develop. And my coaches saw me at a young age struggling, and they did everything they could to keep me moving forward. And fast forward into college, that's why I switched my major and went to education. I want to be a coach. Like, why wouldn't I do for others, just a percentage of what those guys did for me? And that's why my first job out of college was as a high school teacher and coach, and loved every second of it. I mean, every second of it. And, but yeah, it certainly shaped what I want to do as a career. And I think it also shapes how I live now. Very few times am I going to take advantage of time with my family. My kid has 2 baseball games the other day. There's a 4-hour window in between, and there's a lot of things that a parent could do in that 4-hour window. My kid wanted to stay there. I sat there and watched him, and I just soaked it up, because that's time with, and he was with his buddies, but I was going to be there, one of those deals. So that part, and then as a coach, I think this coaching business, just like any other job, I think you get into something for a specific reason. And I think sometime down the middle of your path, sometimes we veer off the rails a little bit and we lose why we got into it. So those things happened to me at a young age, and choosing the profession why I did, I always remind myself why I got into the profession. So it is about taking care of the kids. It is making sure that, you build the person up before the player. It is just the love of being around a coaching staff and being in this profession, because the profession is changing, and I don't want it to change. I want to be a coach. And so, yeah, those days at 14 years old, 100% guide me today.
How much harder would it have been as you're 14 and not really, most 14-year-olds are thinking about who they're going to ask to homecoming, that kind of thing, to have that? How much more difficult would that have been without those coaches as you were going through that?
Oh, it would have been impossible. It would have been impossible. I would have been I would use a chip on my shoulder the wrong way. I would have felt sorry for myself, and they did the exact opposite. I remember my basketball coach making sure I was going to be at practice the Monday after, and I'll never forget that. And I have such respect for him to do that. And he just knew what I needed, even though I didn't know what I needed. I wanted to crawl up in a ball, and he said I need to be with the team. and I'll never forget that. And I owe him the rest of my life.
Wow. That'd be quite the practice then that Monday.
Yeah, back at it.
And then as you've gone through with coaching, I'm assuming you're still in touch with some of those coaches.
1,000%. 1,000%. To me, as you get up in age a little bit, I've been doing this for, I don't know, 22, 23 years. You really start to not look back necessarily, but you pump the brakes a little bit. I think about 3 years ago, it was the first time I kind of like took a deep breath and just said, okay, how the heck did I get here? And who helped me? And then you really start to appreciate your mentors. Then you get at that age where you have ex-players that are doing cool things, as a professional, as a father and husband and things like that. And it's just like, it really, it justifies why you're doing what you're doing. But yeah, mentors and players, without those two things, I'm not sure what this profession has more powerful than those two things. I never want to let go of that. Matter of fact, I had lunch last week with my college coach, spent the day with him over in Williamsburg. Awesome. Spring break, I went and spent with my first boss. He was my college offensive coordinator, and he was my first boss as a high school head coach. Took the family. That's where I spent spring break at, Coach Temple's. I'm going to go see my high school coach with my son later on this month. So yeah, any time I have, it's going to be served to the people that served me, that gave to me, and spend good time with good people.
And then how much does it mean to be able to now pay it forward as a coach yourself?
It means everything. Yeah. It just, you get at this age and you have friends that are doing jobs that, they may not like, or they're happy on Friday, and they're not happy Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. They're kind of happy. Friday, they're rolling, and where I'm pretty happy Monday through Friday, Monday through Sunday. So yeah, it means everything, and it leaks over to your family, right? So, and then it's now the challenge is who you work for, who you work with, especially in a changing profession right now. That's vital. That's vital.
And then that's a great segue to my next question about 2021. You get the call about the Iowa offensive line position. What was that like, considering that Iowa has a reputation for offensive linemen?
Well, I think as you go through the profession, I've never gotten into climbing a ladder. Those are never my goals. I was going to be a high school coach the rest of my life. I GA'd just because my mentor had a GA spot open, and I wasn't going to GA for anybody else. My plan was to go GA for him, and I was going to go back to Mattoon High School and be the best damn O-line coach they've ever had. That's the way I'm a small town dude. That's the way I thought. And I was good with it. So I think, but as you get going and you got into college a little bit, and been happy everywhere I've been at really good places, really good people, but in the back of your mind, you do always have spots like, hey, that'd be cool to work there. Like that's a fit. You always figure out places where there might be a fit, because my fear in this profession, and mostly it's the way I'm wired, I've always thought I'd have to sell my soul or change who I was to coach at this level, to be quite honest with you. And I don't mean that in a horrific way or a bad way. I don't want to change why I got in this business, because it's working out pretty well for my players. And Iowa was always a spot that you had in the back of your mind where, well, I bet that place is a really good fit for me. And then, so when the job came open, my mentor, who is as an acquaintance and friend of Coach Ferentz, he contacted me and asked me if I would have interest. And I'm not sure why I needed to answer, but I did have interest. And so I knew going into the interview that this could, I was excited because I wanted to see if Santa Claus was really Santa Claus. I wanted to see if this job's really that good, and this head coach is really that special, and this place is really that special. And it was more. And that was just during the interview. I called my wife. I said, I don't know what's going to happen with this interview. I know this. I'm going to enjoy the hell out of the next 48 hours. And I'm going to ask Coach Ferentz more questions than he can ask me. just because it's rare to be around programs and people, more importantly, people that have that outlook on life in this profession. So interview, get off the job, take the job, and it's been unbelievable ever since. And I think the challenge of this profession is working for the right man. For me to be able to stay on the same track that I wanted to when I got into this profession, and what a fit this is. And Iowa City is a special place. University of Iowa, the campus is beautiful. It's a really good place. I learned a long time ago that people make the place. And my family know exactly who I work for. When I come home, even on the toughest day, they know I work for the best. I work for Kirk Ferentz. And that's a fact. And that's how important people are to me in this business. And because it's, everything starts at the top. The bar's set so high. I've said this before. I knew when I took this job, I was going to become a better coach. That's easy. He's one of the best offensive line coaches that's ever walked the face of the earth. And his program is unbelievable. And the guys I work with are tremendous. So I'm going to be a better coach. What I didn't realize is how important this was going to be to me as a person. And it was going to make me a better husband. It was going to make me a better father. So those three things, and that's because of the guy at the top of this organization. That's because of Kirk Ferentz. That's not because of a monument somewhere or a building somewhere or a fancy this somewhere. People make a place, and this has been such a tremendous fit for me that I'm just very grateful for it.
Was there kind of this disbelief at all when it's like, wow, this is, as you were saying, better than Santa Claus?
I don't think disbelief, because I've never really, I don't have a lack of confidence in ability and things like that. And so but there has been moments where it's just feeling, being grateful, especially when we talked about pumping the brakes a little bit, looking back a little bit. It's not really about the level. It's really not about Big Ten or whatever. It's really not for me. But to be able to say I work for Coach Ferentz and I work with the guys I work with in this building, this staff is high quality coaches, high quality people and their families. And it's just, and then you sit with our kids and you talk to our kids and you meet the players and then you're like, you're kidding me? Like, that's what's special. That's those pinchy moments that you're just really thankful and really grateful, and it makes you want to work harder for these people.
And then how has being here made you a better father and husband?
Just the example our head coach sets. I think in the world of college football today, in the coaching profession, it's becoming, I don't want to say different, but there's a lot of salesmanship, and there's a lot of, there's a lot of different ways to go about it. And I really value how it's done here. Like, I feel good at the end of the day calling myself a coach. And I think there's some places where, like I said earlier, you feel like you'd have to change because of it's every second's a make or break, chase a recruit or chase this, or, you know what I mean? It's just different. It's just different here. It's really, really gratifying to be a part of, and it's really special.
And then when you got here in 2021, what was it like seeing this really good center named Tyler Linderbaum in your room?
Yeah, well, it's nice. Like, I hope this kid's a freshman. No, no, he's different. He's so different on many levels. He's such a special kid. Let's just say as a person first, he gives more than he takes. He's one of the hardest workers you're ever going to be around. You're not replacing him. You're not doing it. You're not replacing him with another him. It's not happening. You hope like heck there's some kids that strive to be like him and pick up some. And we talked about that last year of these young kids. Like, dude, you better be watching this kid and watch him, how he handles his business and things like that. But yeah, it's, he gave way more to me than I gave to him. And I say that full confidence. He's a special kid, and he was such a great teammate, so humble, deserves everything coming his way. Everything coming his way. And I'm so excited for him and his family and his future family. And because he just does things the right way. He's a hard worker. He doesn't skip steps. Man, he's a good one. And then, okay, so now you get on the field. He's really good. He's a really, really good player. He's special. He just plays with a tenacity and a leverage and things like that it's hard to find. He's rare.
So I guess you'll be DVRing a few Ravens games this year.
Yeah, my son keeps tabs on him every day. So he's already ordered. He's waiting for the jersey to come out. So we're going to be all over
it. How many Wonderbomb jerseys will there be in the Barnett house?
Well, price is probably going to be pretty high. So my guess is for sure my son will have one.
All right.
Because if I get one, he'll just take it. So then he'll have two. So we'll probably just buy one.
And then if you could, in a perfect world, have any attributes of an offensive lineman that you're recruiting, what would be your perfect Iowa offensive lineman recruit?
I think let's start with the physical traits. You like athletic ability with the feet, just the way we block people. We do things a little bit different than some, and it really accentuates the athletic kid with great feet. You like a frame, and a prerequisite talent to be able to play the game for sure. After that, it shifts over to the makeup of the person, and it's probably honestly just as, if not more important than the frame and those things. Who is this kid? What makes him tick? Does anything make him tick? Is he passionate about something? Does he love football, or does he at least love to compete? We're talking about big, young offensive linemen now, and it's tough. It's hard. It's not 7-on-7, and they're not playing. You're not catching routes and running on air. Everything we do is going to be hard and strenuous. So they're going to have a pep in their step. They're going to have a little look in their eye and a little twitch to them. So you're looking for all those things. How grateful are they for where they've been? Can they tell you who taught them how to be good? Can you tell them, or are they appreciative of their high school coaches? Because this is so difficult that these kids have to have some of those like innate born just values and toughness, and you know what I mean? Like it's because if you get those kids that are like that, confidence is another one. How do you measure it? Are they multi-sport kid? You love to have a kid that's multi-sport and has been in the spotlight in different arenas. That breeds confidence. You don't want to recruit the kid that's worried too much about the depth chart, or worried about this or worried about that. You want the guy that's very confident in himself, like, hey, they're going to come in here and do what they got to do, and a belief in themselves. They're assured in themselves. And so all those little things that you're always looking for, and everything's sliding scale, right? So not everybody's going to check every single box, but some may check, these 3 boxes. And so this 4th box is at least got to be up here, may not be higher than the other 3, but so it's all those attributes. But I think everybody probably would guess that it's all about the physical, but boy, how you are as a person means a lot. Are you used to winning? What are you used to doing when it gets tough? What are you used to doing near the end of the season? Are you packing your stuff in and kind of, getting negative, or are you used to winning? So, hey, we're just getting started here. We're going to play our best football the last 4 or 5 weeks of the season, because this position, that's at the end of the day, that's what all good offensive lines do. They play their best at the end of the season.
And then you were mentioning multi-sport. Iowa, I don't think anyone keeps this stat, but there are probably more wrestlers from high school in the Iowa offensive line room than probably most other schools. How has that football wrestling balance helped Iowa offensive linemen?
Oh, I think everywhere from leverage to the ability to use hands and strength the right way with their hips in a certain position, a little bit lower than others. That sport just teaches you leverage in such a different manner than other sports. Because if you don't do it right, you're going to be on the bad end of it in a hurry. And then I think just the competitiveness, the ability to go on a mat one-on-one, spotlights on you, and everyone's got their eyes on you. And how are you going to do it? And you're going to fail, and how are you going to respond to that? And then you're going to come back and win. And how did you do that? So that those attributes are just so valuable. And most wrestlers have a calmness to them, but a intensity to them. Some people think intensity is volume. Some of the best intense guys we've had were on the mat, and there wasn't a lot of volume.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate you joining the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. It was awesome. I appreciate you.
And thanks to our listeners for tuning into another episode. I will be back next week. Until then, we will talk Hawks later.